New York Giants, 9-7 last year.
Oh, the New York football Giants.
Yep. And my cocaine cowboy.
Guy did a lot of cocaine. I did a lot of cocaine.
Giants were 9-7. Vegas doesn't have them being as lucky this year, and I will use the word lucky. I was not expecting that. When you have a missed field goal week 1 to give you the win, and then you have another missed field goal to get a win later in the season, you lose on Christmas. Was it Christmas Day we lost or Christmas Eve? Christmas Day, I think they lost to the Vikings by a field goal. Yeah. Like, we skated by and then we didn't skate by, but everything was by the skin of our teeth here. So, and I'm saying ours because, yes, I'm a Northeasterner. We say it's my team, our team. Vegas has them at 7.5 odds. I don't disagree with them, but I see the Giants could still end up at 9-7 this season. They were 25th in passing attempts, 27th in yardage last year. It was an improving season for Daniel Jones, who threw for 3,200 yards, but they, again, were just like the Eagles. Heavy in the rush, 8th in attempts, 4th in yardage, even more efficient. So Daniel Jones finished at QB 9 last year. That could surprise a lot of people, but it didn't surprise me because I watched every game. He's going QB 14 this year, 108th overall. He had for 3,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. He's only thrown 12 interceptions in the past 2 seasons. That's an actual impressive stat. And then he had 120 rushes for 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. So again, when we talk about Jalen Hurts, this is Jalen Hurts light right here. This is Jalen Hurts that you can get way later in the draft. Now, I said Jalen Hurts threw for 3,700 and 165 rushes for 760. Daniel Jones had 120 for 700. He threw for 3,200 yards himself. He had 15 touchdowns he had 7 less than Jalen Hurts there, and obviously he had 6 less touchdowns on the ground than Jalen Hurts. The Giants did not score as much as the Eagles did. But again, the quarterback play from him, he was week winner in some games for people last year. And he could be again this year because besides adding Darren Waller, what did this offense really do to improve? Well, I guess you could say they got healthy. I mean, in their wide receiver core, but this guy's going to need to still use his legs. Yeah, he's still going to need to use his legs. It's another year underneath the system. Maybe he doesn't run for as much because asking your quarterback to run 120 times when you have Saquon Barkley. But again, Saquon Barkley ran for 300 times. So I like Daniel Jones. Again, he's one of those quarterbacks down there a little bit later on in that range where I want to say he is before Geno Smith right now, before Anthony Richardson, before Goff and Wilson and all those guys, but he's after Tua, Rodgers, Cousins, Watson, Lawrence, Fields, like all the big hitters, the guys who are a little more consistent, I would say have a higher floor than he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you love to talk shit about my teams all the time. But that being said, like, an honest opinion, is Daniel Jones a guy that if you punted the QB position, no, and Aaron Rodgers and all those guys are there, is Daniel Jones a guy you are going to take as one of your 2 QBs?
No.
Yeah. I would.
Listen, I get the running upside. I just don't trust the passing upside. And when you're going against teams that are, again, they're playing a really tough schedule this year. This is not an easy schedule. Those close games where they might have won last year, they're going to be in tougher defenses that are going to stuff the run. And it's going to make Daniel Jones have to pass the ball. And it's something we haven't seen from him yet on his efficiency being up. Now, I do like his building up off last year. I know his touchdown numbers were low last year in terms of passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
But he cut back on interceptions, which I really like. And I think if he continues that path, he's got to, like, in order for me to see him have value there, like, he's got to be throwing 25 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is if he threw at least a touchdown a game last year, there were a total of 6 games last year where he didn't throw for a single touchdown, and you give him 5 of those, 5 to 6, you give him all 6 like that, you get him into the 20 range. He still wouldn't have thrown 25 touchdowns. Like, he's going to need to do that. But I mean, again, you're talking about a quarterback that was able to, in a wild card game, Yeah, it was against Minnesota, but he was still able to throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and run for 78 himself. He ended up being in that wild card game was QB3, but obviously less quarterbacks there. But he still was QB2 in a 40-point game against Indy. He had a 30-point game against Jacksonville. They had a much easier quarterback schedule last year, and this quarterback schedule this year is not. It's not going to be. It's not going to be the same thing. It's not a walk in the park. So when I originally thought going this season, it's like, man, they're going to try and dial back Daniel Jones's rushing, and try and this is where I could see Saquon getting more rushes. And then I looked at the schedule, and I said to myself, he's just going to have to run. It's not like they're going to plan the runs. Like, yeah, they're going to put him in there, but he's going to have to scramble and he's going to have to run. And he's faster than people think he is because he's facing some really good defensive pass rushes. He's facing some really good coverage corners that there's going to be coverage sacks because of plenty of them.
Well, that's my point. It's not like they're going to blitz him and get pressure. Like, these teams can rush 4 and get pressure after him. So he's going to not have to beat them with his legs. He's going to have to beat them with his arm. And have you seen enough out of Daniel Jones to trust that? And my opinion is no, I haven't. And I don't think that they brought a lot of, besides Darren Waller, I think that they have a piecemeal of weapons here.
Well, Paris Campbell, I thought that was a good
piecemeal.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, anything's better than Kenny Golladay, right?
Yes, dude. Yes. I mean, the fact that we were rolling out Kenny Golladay and Kadarius
I'd rather
Toney.
take Plax with a bullet in his leg.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing for Daniel Jones, and before we move on, because I want to talk about the receivers here, because that's going to be probably the meat of it, because people are going to wonder, like, well, the Giants, besides Daniel Jones or Saquon, and Waller, who could I draft? And we'll talk about that. But Daniel Jones, they were 25th in attempts last year. I don't see them being 25th again this year. They're not going to be able to sustain that and win ball games and run the clock out in games where the quality of their opponent has gone up and they're going to have to pass the ball. So they can move themselves up into that like 18th in attempts. And if they do that, Daniel Jones should throw for 3,700 yards. He should throw for 20 something touchdowns. Like it should happen.
My question is, do you trust him to do that?
Yeah, I do. It's not that Jones is not the guy that I'm trusting, because obviously we wouldn't be talking about, are we going to draft him or not, if this guy was a massive high caliber. If he was really the 6th overall pick quality caliber, which I don't think he was. I think he's a great quarterback that, can play in the NFL, but this coaching scheme in Dayball, I think what they are doing with him is unlocking his potential. But he doesn't have the ceiling that Josh Allen has, I don't think, at all. And I don't think he obviously doesn't have the weapons and stuff here either. But that being said, I think you could see him flirting with 4,000 yards. It's the touchdowns that this team concerns me with. It's just scoring the touchdowns.
I think 4,000 yards is ridiculous.
How do you think how do you think that's ridiculous? Tell me.
I don't see it. Like, he's going to run more. I don't think he has a sustainable weapon to do that, unless one of these guys really emerges as being the 1,000-yard. If he's throwing for 4,000 yards, he's going to have a 1,000-yard receiver, and we'll get to the receivers in a second. But I don't see any of those guys being around that 1,000-yard range.
I'm not saying he's throwing 4,000. I'm saying he's flirting, so he's around 3,800 yards.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that.
4,000 yards is a lot. I'm saying flirting with 4,000 yards.
As his ceiling.
Yeah, as his ceiling.
Let me ask you this. Justin Fields, Daniel Jones.
Oh, Justin Fields, because you got a guy who could rush for 1,000 yards versus a guy that I think hit his ceiling last year with 700. I'll take more rushing yards. I'll take 300 more rushing yardage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, 1,000 less passing yardage, 300 more rushing yards. I mean, like, to me, the fact that Justin Fields is being drafted so far ahead of him is, you got to also see that, like, Justin Fields is going to have a giant leap. Right now they're projecting him on Fantasy Pros to have just under 3,500 passing yards, and they're saying about 650 rushing yards. So, and I think like that's a good number to start with increase in weapons with Darren Waller and a fast, speedy slot receiver in Paris Campbell and healthy receivers. I think you could tack on 400 more yards if they end up having to throw the ball a lot more. just based on that alone. So moving on to Saquon Barkley, we'll stay short on Barkley. I put a little short out there. If you haven't taken a look at it, go take a look at our shorts, and you'll see my short on why Saquon Barkley could be the running back 1 overall this season. And I will continue to do them for the rest of the top running backs that people are drafting. I did Eckler and I did Chubb. I also will be doing the same thing for Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson as well. So looking at Saquon Barkley, he had a resurgence here, 295 carries, still below the number of carries as some of the top 4 guys ahead of him, besides Eckler, obviously. But when you look at Josh Jacobs, you look at Nick Chubb, you look at Derrick Henry. Chubb is the only one that's closest to him, and his efficiency was way better than Saquon's. But those other guys are getting 340 to 375 carries. I could see some carries going up for Saquon here. And I could see his touchdowns. He had 10. I could see that going up. And the fact that he didn't have a receiving touchdown, I could see that changing. He had 57 catches. Again, if in trouble in these games, in these tough situations, I think they're going to go to the one guy they trust the most, and it's Saquon Barkley. I could see him being around 65 receptions again this year, close to 400 yards, give him a couple of touchdowns in the end zone. He ends up with 12 total overall. He ends up with a total of 17, almost 1,800 total yards. Like, I think that's where his route to RB1 is.
Yeah. I mean, I really like running backs that are in contract years and have chips on their shoulders and something to prove.
Eckler,
so I do like
Saquon.
Eckler and Saquon this year.
Taylor.
Nope. He's disgruntled. That's not.
No, but it's his contract year. It's his 4th year.
Yeah,
it's
very different though. There's a lot going in.
Josh Jacobs, if he signs a franchise tag.
Yeah. I think Jacobs is a guy that
I agree with you on the Taylor stuff.
He's just disgruntled. Like, they're finding excuses. They're like, no, we don't want you here. You don't want to be here. Like, here's an excused absence. Here's your hall pass. Go.
Yeah. But anyway, Saquon Barkley, go ahead. He finished RB6. He's in a good situation.
He's in a good situation. I really like, and the fact that, it's not a lot of money. I know the people have talked about his incentives that are in the deal. It's only like $900,000, which, like, I get it, it's a lot of money. But in terms of,
I'll take it.
I'll take it too.
I'll go run for 1,300 yards. Just give me the ball, dude.
I'll run for 13,000 yards. All right, just give me the ball. I won't do it in an NFL game, but I'll go and do it.
No, I'll do it in an NFL game if I'm making $1 million in incentives.
My body will never be the same.
I'll catch 65 passes out the flat blind.
No thanks. Remember those Kimbo Slice videos?
Dude, remember the hit on Reggie Bush?
Oh my God.
That's when I'd be dead. I'd be dead.
But like I even though it's not a ton of money in terms of the running back perspective, he does have incentives for all career highs. And so I think he's going to be motivated to go and do that and earn every cent of what he's going to make and what the Giants can pay him, as either just like faiscata to the Giants organization, or be like, I'm here, this is my city, like this is what I'm going to do for you guys.
This is
and
my
he's going
team.
to earn it. Yeah, and he's going to earn that contract by the Giants. And I think that the Giants would, if he does hit all those incentives, end up re-signing him to a long-term deal to keep him there. But yeah, he has got 1,300 yards. I think he has to have 13 total touchdowns. I think he has to have 65
it's 11 total touchdowns. 1,300 yards, and he has to have 65 receptions. To me, 1,300 yards, he did it in 16 games.
He's one touchdown away from that with one receiving touchdown.
And he only had 57 receptions. If he catches a couple balls that were tough there, I mean, like, you're literally talking about
most drop passes from running back.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I don't like about Daniel Jones. We talked about this on the side, but you need 8 more receptions on the season to do it. Like, it can happen easily.
Yeah.
And I think if we're able, the Giants can spread the field with their new weapons that we're going to start talking about here, with like Jalin Hyatt, Darren Waller, and stretch out that field a little bit and open up some underneath room for Saquon. I think his average depth of target will also go up, because he was catching a lot of passes at line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, and trying to let him do the work there. They weren't really getting him in quote unquote open space either.
Well, that's the thing that's like, so this is why it's really hard for me to rank him in above Chubb and above Henry and above CMC and above Eckler is his stats. Like, I know he's a dynamic guy, but he has the most stuffed runs in, like, I think he's a top 3 amongst running backs in stuffed runs. Like, he's getting hit and hit often. And I like those offenses a heck of a lot better than I like the Giants offense. And I know that the Giants offensive line is better than it was 2 years ago, but they're still rebuilding that offensive line. And even though they were efficient in running,
we had a rookie center.
Yeah, even though they were efficient in running last year, and they had the yardage to prove it. They had 700 yards on the ground from Daniel Jones. I don't think Saquon has the ability to have 1,500 rushing yards. And yeah, he can get the all-purpose yards there, but I don't think he's close to being a 1,000 guy. And so that's
not since his rookie season. I could see that happening again. I don't think they want to do that with him either.
Right, but there's no one else there. I mean, they brought in James Robinson. They have Matt Breida. Like, there's no one else there to give work to.
Yeah, it's his backfield. I told you, like, the pathway to RB1, it's there, especially based on his incentives. Like, if he gets 330 carries this year instead of 295, you give him 35 more carries. 35 more carries at 4 yards per carry, 4.4 what he had last year. There's a chance he hits 1,500 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
but again, it's ceilings. You're drafting him for a ceiling. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the wide receivers here. Again, it's not much to write home about, but you got Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell as the top 3, and then coming off the bench, you do have Jalin Hyatt, the rookie, as well as Wan'Dale Robinson, who's coming off an ACL tear, last year's rookie. You also have Sterling Shepard, who is going to be a Giant for life. He wants to retire a Giant. He is also a fantastic wide receiver coming off an ACL injury. Those are two. No, they didn't cut him. Those are two guys that I'm sitting there saying, like, I'm not drafting obviously Shepard or Wan'Dale. I would take a chance on Wan'Dale Robinson in a dynasty league late. But to me, when you look at it all here, Darius Slayton is not the first wide receiver off the board, but is a great wide receiver for Daniel Jones in the past. Last year, he did have 46 receptions for 724 yards, 10 yards per target, and 15 yards per reception, 2 TDs. He was the most efficient and had the most receptions last year. Didn't mean that much. Isaiah Hodgins came up big at the end of the season for the Giants, outside of Richie James, obviously. And he had 37 receptions for 392 yards, 4 touchdowns. Paris Campbell, newly acquired, is a good slot wide receiver 3, super duper speed. And that's one thing the Giants did in this offseason was said, let's get speed. Speed at tight end, speed in the slot, speed on the outside with drafting Jalin Hyatt. I'm not drafting a Giants wide receiver unless it's Paris Campbell or Jalin Hyatt. And because they're so late, they're being picked up so deep in the draft overall, I'm taking a chance on the rookie. And that's a stash on my bench type of pick. And Paris Campbell, I think, is going to be sneaky one of the more popular wide receivers for Daniel Jones.
That's a mistake. Isaiah Hodgins is the guy to own here, and I would draft him. And I think here's my question.
If Richie James was still on this team, would you take Richie James over Isaiah Hodgins?
No.
I would. Richie James had a better season than Hodgins.
Overall, Hodgins came on late in the season. He wasn't playing in the first half of the season. So in terms of, we talked already about Jahan Dotson in this division, who is number 6 in fantasy points per target. Number 7, Isaiah Hodgins. Isaiah Hodgins was also number 1 in route win rate. He was also number 1 in win rate versus man. And that's amongst wide receivers. That's not amongst Giant wide receivers. That's amongst all wide receivers. He was extremely efficient in the red zone. The 4 touchdowns. How many receptions did he have?
He only had 37.
47 targets he had.
Yeah, 37 receptions.
4 touchdowns. He's a big body dude.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I like him. He's good. I'm just saying if
Daniel Jones and this offense is going to improve in the passing game, it's going to have to come from a big target receiver that's going to be able to get them downfield. And I think that Isaiah Hodgins is the guy to own there, and not I get it with Jalin Hyatt. I get he's going to have the speed, the over the top
Well,
speed.
no, Hyatt's a dart throw. That's a coin toss. Like, I'm taking a chance on it. I'm saying Paris Campbell for the reason what you're saying is somebody's going to need to be able to take the top off this defense and spread the field down, and that's going to be Darren Waller. It's not going to be Isaiah Hodgins. That's going to be Darren Waller more times than not. And to me, I could see what Richie James was the go-to guy in a lot of situations and scenarios on third downs, etc. And Paris Campbell is stepping right in and arguably could be a better receiver than Richie James, although the stats Richie James had last year were fantastic, which is why someone like the Chiefs go grab him. And I think he's a dark horse wide receiver for the Chiefs. He's somebody that I'm looking to possibly get. But Paris Campbell goes into that situation. I think Paris Campbell could come out here being number 2 in targets on the team.
Yeah, like you got to like what he did in Indy with like the bad quarterback play there, so he's going to be used to it coming to the Giants.
He just needs to stay healthy.
But yeah, I mean, like I don't not like Paris Campbell. I think that Paris Campbell and Isaiah Hodgins are the only 2 guys that I would own on this team. I think Slayton's a big play guy, but he's more of a best ball or DFS play than a guy that you're going to own in
he's a big playmaker. He's a down the sideline big playmaker, which you like. I mean, if you're going to throw somebody in the flex on a bye week, you could possibly take a chance on him based on matchups.
I get the appeal of drafting rookies, but Jalin Hyatt's probably not even like the 5th or 6th rookie wide receiver that I would draft. I mean, he's probably closer to the 10 or if not after the 10. And I just don't think this passing offense can sustain him. And then if you look deeper into his numbers last year, he was really inefficient with like winning routes. He's struggling to do that. He has a limited route tree where he's better suited on drag routes, on shorter slant routes to win. So I think he's going to be at least have to grow into that position. But if we want to move on to Darren Waller and you can say your piece on him and how much you love him and how he's not going to be the next Kenny Golladay for the Giants, like go right ahead because that's a high priced free agent for a guy that plays very minimally.
Well, I will say about Jalin Hyatt, and like I said, I like him for the sheer fact of his explosiveness and his speed. And in a season where the Giants didn't really have that last year outside of Saquon Barkley because Wandale left and Shepard got hurt, you're going to need somebody on the outside with that speed. And he's like, I mean, Darius Slayton's fast too, don't get me wrong, but not Jalin Hyatt, not Jalin Hyatt speed. Like even the guys, 4-4. You know, but I'm just saying 4-4 versus on field, it's different. You know it. You played football, you played sports. Somebody could run a 4-4 40 on a straight line, sports. But yay sports. You get somebody that's moving in a different gear, and that's what his teammates are saying. Again, it's a dart throw. I'm taking like my 13th or 14th pick on this guy, maybe even the last pick in the draft on this guy, as a stash away, hopeful that like, hey, maybe by mid-season he's being used by the Giants and getting like 5 targets a game because one of those targets could be a touchdown.
Well, even there, like, because like Tank Dell's going in the 15th round.
He's not going to go in the 15th round after preseason. You know that. He's already being hyped up hard.
As of right now, as of today, he's going 15th round.
I agree. Listen,
would you take Tank Dell or would you take
John Mechie's going later than that too, and I like John Mechie. And DJ Chark
he's the same explosive speed, breakaway speed, right?
No, he's not. I never said that. Also, when you think about it too, DJ Chark's going one of the last rounds, and that guy's going to have a fantastic season, and he's going to have a lot more opportunities because he's going to play. Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying for people to go out and take Jalin Hyatt. I'm saying I would take the risk bench spot on it for the upside if halfway through the season this guy is all of a sudden having 60% of the snaps and he's getting like maybe say 8 targets and he gets 5 catches for 110 yards because that's what he could do with the ball real quick. There's a chance. I'm also a Giants lover, so take that with a grain of salt. But Darren Waller, Daniel Bellinger, the 2 tight ends that are here. I love Darren Waller. I think he's going to tight end 6. I have him in my top 3. I have him as my tight end 3 because there are very few tight ends out there that have done what he done when he was the tight end 2. Travis Kelce has been tight end 1, tight end 2. Mark Andrews has been tight end 2, and Kittle's been tight end 2. You look at the other guys in that list, everybody is thinking Hawkinson's going to go up. I think Hawkinson takes a step back from last year because Addison's now in there. He's going to be a lot better of a receiver than Thielen was for them last year. Darren Waller is going to be just like Travis Kelce in that offense because he is the number one pass catcher for the offense, with the caveat that he has to stay healthy for this full season. I get what you're saying, and I get there's a need, but when you're drafting, you can't draft based on injury. If you want to hinge your bets on that and pick up a tight end later on because of injury, go get Dalton Kincaid with high upside in Buffalo later in the 10th round. Get Bellinger in the last pick of your draft or second, 13th round because of the fact that he is still a good tight end. I mean, 12 games like prior to his injury, his eye injury, he had 3 top 10 finishes for tight ends. Bellinger did last year. But Waller to me has the ceiling that had the upside to be a top 3 tight end. And that's why, and the fact is you can get him light years later after Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. And you're going to get him after Kittle. You're going to get him after Hawkinson too.
Listen, I've given you a lot of crap about Darren Waller and everything. Like, I agree with you. I think that he has the talent to be a top 3 tight end in the league and to be in the same conversation as Andrews and maybe not as Kelce. I don't think he's at that level.
No, he'd have
because
to do
the offense isn't at that level.
No, I agree.
And that's what scares me about. Again, this is the passing offense of this team scares me. And if you're going to say, all right, I really like this tight end as a top 3 tight end in the league. Well, if you have a guy that is on a bad passing offense, is bottom third in the league in a passing offense, then it's hard for me to fall in love with the tight end position there. And I get Waller as an athlete is fantastic, and they're bringing in a legit pass catcher for Daniel Jones, but I don't see the pathway for him to stay healthy the entire year. And then B, to have the top 3 finish because of that. So even if he misses 6 games, I mean, those can be brutal 6 games that he misses. And if you're drafting him at where his ADP is, where if you're taking him in the first 5 rounds, like that's a lot to risk on a guy. And we've seen it with other top tier positions, right? Like look at the other injuries that are scaring people away. Like Lamar's dropping down, right? Everyone's afraid of Breece Hall and everyone's afraid of Javonte Williams. And I get the hesitation with Javonte, but Waller has a history of not just significant injuries, but soft tissue injuries that have kept him out for extended periods of time. Ankle injuries, hamstring injuries, hip injuries. And that's what scares me off of him, where if I'm going to waste a 5th round draft pick on him, like I can get someone else in that position. Like I would rather pay a round higher and go get Kittle. I would rather pay a round higher and go get Hawkinson. I'd rather wait another 3 rounds and get guys like Schultz. Like he's not an avoid for me because of his talent and what he can do. Because when he's healthy, he is very good.
An elite. Would you take him over Kyle Pitts?
If at that position,
yes. So here's the thing. They're going now.
The same round.
Yeah, they're going literally right next to each other. They're 67, 68th overall. So you're talking about 6th round, 7th round pick for Darren Waller. Like to me, that's why I love it so much. Like I would, if he was being drafted in the 3rd round, 4th round as a tight end, I would say I'm off of him based on ADP. Like I know what he can do, but what you're giving. What do you say?
You want him or Lockett?
I could get Lockett the next round in the 70s. They're like, well, never mind. They're 6 picks apart. So, yeah. Well, it depends because it depends on the makeup. I would say I would take Waller. I would take Waller as my tight end because the drop off after Waller based on ceiling and opportunity is big, because you could see someone like Kyle Pitts could go for 1,000 yards and he could finally have himself 7 touchdowns this season. And then you put him in the top 5. But once you get outside of there, tight end, you got Evan Ingram, who I think is going to take a downturn from last year because you have another pass catcher there. And let's see, Pat Freiermuth. You see what I'm saying in terms of targets and yardage just plummet in that position, whereas like Pitts and Waller are the last 2 guys in that list of 6 tight ends that can see 1,000 yards. and can get the targets to do it. That's the reason I like it. But if you're getting him in the seventh round, sixth round, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Waller's coming over from an offense with Jimmy G or with Derek Carr that really like to use tight ends. They really were efficient in using tight ends there, and he put up those numbers. He's coming to a team with the Giants who weren't using tight ends as much, and their passing game was far inferior. So yeah, Evan Ingram, there's more talent around him, but we all expect that passing offense as a whole to increase. Do we expect the Giants' passing offense to increase from what it did last year? And if so, you're going to see less production from the wide receivers and more production from tight end. And that's where it's hard for me to get to that place where is he worth it? Because if the team doesn't use him, and yeah, I get it that Daniel Jones is just hyper-targeting him because he's a freak athlete. But if he's hyper-targeting him...
He may pull an Eli Manning. Just hyper-target one guy. I'm just saying, I think the upside's there. Again, though, if I'm drafting Darren Waller,
Daniel Jones pass that gets overthrown and Waller's going to get hit in the back and he's going to be out for 13 games.
I'm just saying, if I'm drafting Darren Waller, I'm also still going to hinge my bets on somebody because of his injury history. But I'm not